All right, Alexander, let's talk about what is going on in Romania. Big protests the other week in Romania. People in Romania are very upset about what has happened with their elections. The cancellation, the annulment of the second round of the elections where Georgescu was going to win. I think it's now pretty much accepted that he was going to win big. Some of the polls had him winning with 64% of the vote. And the Supreme Court canceled the elections. And now the reports are that they just want to do the whole thing all over again. New elections, new candidates. Georgescu is not going to be allowed to run. I believe Lasconi, was the candidate's name, the opposition that was going to be in the second round. She's going to be out. I mean, you're hearing reports saying that they just want to do a complete do-over and just basically run all of the pre-approved EU globalist candidates and just start it all from scratch. And I don't think most people in Romania are going to be going for this kind of plan. Anyway, what are your thoughts about what is happening in Romania? Because this is a huge deal. Canceling elections because Chinese-owned TikTok was interfered by Russia, which has also been proven false, by the way. From Romanian media, Snoop.ru did an investigation, and they showed that this had nothing to do with TikTok or Russia. This was one of the major parties in Romania trying to get cute with the elections, and it backfired on them. Anyway, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just be clear about what happened after the first round. They cancelled the second round. And they annulled the first round. This is the decision of the Supreme Court. And they did this on the basis of an intelligence assessment, which, because the intelligence people tell us something, it must be true, that there was a Russian organized campaign on TikTok. Now, is that even a reason to annul an election result? I would say no. If you can produce evidence that Russia is backing Georgescu, produce it, put it to the Romanian people, invite them to vote against him in the second round on the grounds that he's a cat's paw of Russia. Apparently, the Romanian authorities were not prepared to allow that. Then that whole narrative starts to crumble because it looks as if it was not the Russians at all who were behind the TikTok campaign, to the extent that there even was a TikTok campaign in the first place. I mean, lots of things go out on TikTok, on social media, all kinds of candidates get support, and there's nothing unusual in that. But that whole narrative crumbles. The Supreme Court is invited to re-examine the whole issue, and they nonetheless continue with their course of annulling the elections. Annulling elections. Elections which have happened in a European Union state have been annulled. Now, note that annulling elections, as far as I know, has never happened before in the European Union's entire history, simply because the person who came first is not someone that the political establishment likes. And they disagree with his politics as well. They looked to see whether there'd been evidence of vote rigging. They did a recount. They found no evidence of any problems. But they came up with this further excuse, and they annulled the elections, and they cancelled the second round. And what is now causing increasing anger, I think, in Romania is that, well, if they'd done all of that and they'd called new elections immediately and rerun the whole thing, well, some of the damage, because this is going to cause a lot of damage, some of the damage from that might have been, repaired, but they haven't called new elections. Romania is in limbo. It has Iohannis, who was the previous president, and he's still the president. He's still there. He's still acting as president. We don't know how long he's going to be
Is
president.
he legitimate?
Well, sorry.
Is he legitimate?
I wonder. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what. I don't. I mean, I'm not an expert on Romanian constitutional matters, but I don't know on what basis he is president still. Just to say, but there he is. He still handles the business of the presidency. So he is there. We have no clear idea of when the elections are going to happen, or conceivably if they're going to happen at all. And now we're hearing news stories that people who stood in the first elections, in the actual elections, the real elections, are going to be prevented from standing again. And, they're talking about all of these other candidates being prevented from standing. But of course, everybody could see that the real objective is to prevent Georgescu from standing. There is no other purpose to this. This whole thing is being organized and orchestrated in order to prevent the person who won the first round in the election and who probably, almost certainly, would have won the second round from being elected again. Now, people in Romania, understandably, are now becoming angry. They're starting to protest. We had one big first protest. I am certain that there are going to be others. I have been in touch with people in Romania, and I understand that many, many people in Romania are becoming very angry about the situation. And importantly, this anger extends beyond people who voted for Georgescu or would have voted for him in the second round. Even many people who self-identify as leftists are angry about this because they take the conduct of democracy in Romania seriously. And there is a real possibility, it seems to me, that this thing could rapidly expand and that the political class could conceivably even start to lose control.
Yeah, I think this situation highlights how much control NATO has of Europe and of the EU. You can't really separate the European Union with the European member states of NATO.
No.
And I say that because Georgescu, he's been making statements saying that it is his belief. He sees things in NATO as one side. There's certain parts of NATO that do not want a war with Russia, that did not want to push everything towards escalation in World War III. But there's this EU part, and he pretty much labels it the EU part of NATO, which is trying to gain control of NATO and trying to push for escalation in World War III. And according to Georgescu, their vehicle to get World War III started is through Romania. It does make sense given that NATO is investing so much in Romania, and they are building a huge NATO base in Romania. And of course, everyone knows about the weapons flow and Romania's proximity to Ukraine and the role it's played in the conflict in Ukraine. So the argument is that this is very much about controlling NATO and about escalating with Russia to the point of World War III, and using Romania as a way to do that. The EU and NATO, it's just the same freaking organization at this point.
Well, absolutely. And by the way, that's going to be important in terms of the Ukraine peace negotiations, assuming they ever happen, because up to now, the Russians have not objected to Ukraine's bid to enter NATO. There's increasing signs that they will do so. And what's happened in Romania is likely to make them even more intent on doing so. Just say. But coming back to Romania itself, you're absolutely correct. I mean, NATO and the EU have been using Romania as a forward base to engage in Ukraine, in Moldova, with which, of course, Romania has very, very strong ethnic, linguistic, cultural, historical connections, which should not be denied. And, of course, with the Black Sea, in the Black Sea. And Romanians increasingly do not like to see their country being used in that way. That is why they voted for Georgescu, because Georgescu said, look, this is nothing to do with us. We are being drawn into a war which does not really concern us. We do not want a war. We should stay out of this war. And that is what I will ensure happens if I am elected your president. Romanians heard that. They approved of it. They voted for him in the first round in large numbers. And all the indications are that in the second round, he would have won. So, given that this is so, what we see is in effect that the EU and the NATO have used the agencies of the Romanian state, the Supreme Court, the presidency, the intelligence services, to carry out what I would straightforwardly call a coup, to prevent Romania exercising its sovereign rights, to conduct its own elections, to elect its own president, so that the course of Romanian policy will not be changed.
How does this affect NATO and the European Union if they succeed in preventing fair elections in Romania? What happens next? Because if there were fair elections in Romania, there's no doubt that Georgescu would win. I think that's pretty much accepted. You would be looking at a situation in Europe where you would have Orban, Fico, possibly in Austria, Kiko, who is aligned with the Orban wing. In Czech Republic, Babiš, who's very much aligned with Orban. It looks like he could be in power in Czech Republic, and you could have Romania, a big EU country, with Georgescu. You would have a significant block of countries saying we don't want war.
Yes.
Period. We don't want war. We need to end this.
Yes.
Well, what happens going forward? Yeah.
Well, this is the big question, because the first thing to say is, first of all, we don't know whether this is going to succeed. As I said, there is already an upswing of opposition in Romania, and it is not impossible that this ongoing silent coup is going to unravel. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen. Definitely, the odds are against it doing so, but we could see that many people in Romania are very angry and very upset about this. But let's say that it succeeds, that they do get what they call an election. They do stop Georgescu from running. They get somebody who is loyal to them back into the Romanian presidency, and they continue the policies that they've been already conducting in Romania, despite the fact that the Romanian people are becoming increasingly disaffected. Well, the first thing to say is that when you start doing this sort of thing, it becomes addictive. And if they do it in Romania, they will start to do it in other places. They will probably try to do it in the Czech Republic. They'll probably try to do it in Poland. There's already people saying that the AfD in Germany should be banned. They will try to do the same, conceivably even in France. We will get eventually into a situation where the EU centre, in fact, the Brussels centre, not only undermines in sovereign states political leaders and governments it doesn't like, it starts picking the governments of these states. In other words, the EU states themselves not only lose their sovereignty, but they are run by people who are straightforward apparatchiks selected from the center. Very much like used to happen, and I'm going to say it, in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, the Politburo chose the regional party first secretary. There was supposed to be an election to confirm him. The election was a ritual because he was always confirmed. And in fact, it was the Politburo who appointed and dismissed officials in the regions. And we're going to have exactly the same system play out in the European Union. We're not going to have governments anymore. We're going to have, in effect, regional first secretaries who will run the Romanian region, the Czech region, the German region, etc., who are picked by the center in Brussels and who will be leveraged into control in the regions in the way that I've just described. So that is where the EU would go. Now, of course, that is ultimately unsustainable because the regions in the Soviet Union, most of them were regions of one single country, even if it was a country that was made up of many different nations and different constituent republics and that kind of thing. The EU is supposed to be the creation of the sovereign state. The people of the sovereign state, places like Romania, they fought for their democracy, for their freedom, for the independence of their countries. It is only a question of time if we ever get to that sort of situation where we will start to see not just opposition and protest, but outright rebellion. And I really do mean that, with all that implies, against the rule of the EU centre. So this is a slippery slope that the EU people have got themselves onto. I don't know whether they understand the implications of what they're doing. But listen to the words of someone like the recent EU Commissioner, Thierry Breton. And you could see that he himself absolutely now sees the EU centre, as having the right to behave in this way.
I think you explained it perfectly. And everything you said is pretty much what they're doing in Romania. What they want to do in Romania. We're going to choose the candidates. They're going to run in this new election. They're going to be pre-approved by us. Romanians go out and vote for our pre-approved candidates. Whoever wins, it's cool with us. They've all been pre-selected and pre-approved. And that's going to be your president. Pre-approved by the European Union. Oh boy. I wonder if this was the plan all along.
I suspect for some people it may have been, actually. And I think we need to be
I wonder if Klaus Schwab is sitting there going, yes, this is exactly as I planned it.
I'm sure he is. In the case of others, I mean, they've drifted there, but they've drifted to a place where they want to be. I mean, there's always been this enormous authoritarian centralizing impulse on the part of the EU centre. And so there it is.
All right. A lot depends on Romania then, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We will end the video there. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what we are wearing in this video update today. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.